Hi, this is Kevin Lane with Magoosh, and in this video I'll give you 5 tips on the LSAT writing section. Now just to make sure you're up to speed on the basics, the LSAT writing section is an unscored 35-minute section that is taken separately from the multiple choice scored portion of the LSAT. It's available up to 8 days before you take the multiple choice section of the LSAT, and although it's unscored, the writing section is still important. First, because you need to have a writing sample on record in order to see your LSAT score. And second, because it's going to be part of your law school application. So law school admissions committees will get a chance to see what you wrote for the writing section. So because it is a part of your law school application, you'll want to do as good a job on LSAT writing as you can. And to that end, here are my 5 tips. Tip number 1, organization and clarity are the keys to good writing. So make sure that you spend about 10 to 15 minutes of your time just reading and thinking about what you're going to say, planning out your points. If you don't do that, what you'll find is you're likely to start writing in a stream of consciousness mode. You might start making up arguments, making up facts that aren't really tethered to the criteria that you're given. If you take time up front to organize your thoughts, then that's going to make for a more structured essay. It's going to give the reader a sense that you know what you're doing. Tip number 2 is to make sure that your arguments are based only on the criteria and the facts that are given. If you start making up concerns, making up facts that were not part of the prompt, then no matter how brilliantly written your essay is, it is not going to be persuasive. So for example, let's say that the prompt is about an architect who is deciding whether to stick with his own solo regional architecture firm or whether to join a larger, more nationally known architecture firm. And let's say the prompt tells you that this architect cares about 2 things. First, his professional reputation, and second, the quality of his work, whether it's interesting. If those are the criteria that the architect cares about, then you shouldn't be making arguments about the increased potential for income at the national firm. The only circumstance where you could make that kind of argument is if you could tie that back to one of the criteria. For example, maybe you could say that the increased income will allow the architect to invest in professional development classes or advertising that might enhance his professional reputation. Or perhaps the increased income would allow the architect to be more choosy about the projects that he works on. And so because he can pick and choose what kinds of projects to work on, he can pick maybe only the more interesting projects. You have to say something like that in order to have income be relevant to the architect's concerns. If you don't do that and you just say he can make more money and that's one of the reasons he should join the national firm, then you are ignoring the criteria that you're given and you are not going to write an effective essay. Tip number 3 is to make sure to address counter-arguments. Every single prompt is going to have facts that are favorable to your side as well as facts that go against you. And your job as an advocate is not to hide the counter-arguments, to hide the unfavorable facts. Your job is to actually bring them up, to make sure that the reader is aware that you are aware of those counter-arguments so that you can rebut those counter-arguments. And even if you're not able to completely rebut certain points, it's completely fine to concede certain points because that'll give you credibility as an advocate. So on the LSAT writing essay, make sure to use as many of the facts that are given, including the facts that don't seem to be in your favor. Sometimes you'll find a way to argue how they really are in your favor, but sometimes they really just are not in your favor, and it's okay to admit that. My 4th tip for LSAT writing is to make sure that you do a couple of practice essays before the real thing. Now that sounds like a really basic idea, but you'd be surprised at how many test takers just kind of wing it when they do LSAT writing. They've never done it before, they've never done a practice essay before, and they find that it's really difficult to write an essay in 35 minutes based on a decision prompt. It's probably the first time that you're being asked to do something like that, and so you do want to get in a couple of practice essays before the real thing. My final tip for LSAT writing is to make sure you use the LSAC's Get Acquainted with LSAT Writing tool on their website. This will allow you to see the exact process and program that you'll be using on the LSAT writing section, and it's always good to familiarize yourself with that ahead of time. In addition, make sure that you review the rules for LSAT writing ahead of time, the materials that are prohibited, the materials that are required. You want to make sure to get all of those administrative, logistical things settled early enough so that you're not stressed about those things on the actual day you have to write your essay. So those are my 5 tips for LSAT writing, and if you follow them, I'm sure that you will produce a beautifully persuasive essay. Make sure to like and subscribe to Magoosh LSAT for more free content and notifications when our next video comes out.